fans have taken something from Love and Hip Hop Atlanta Season 13, which just looked to be settling into its typical drama with Scrappy Skira and the new faces out of nowhere. The vault that has everyone talking once again. Yes, exactly. An old video of Mendeecees and Yandy is making a comeback, and people are seeing it differently this time. In a video now trending on Instagram loops and TikTok, Yandy is seen chit-chatting with a Drake impersonator, and it wasn't just a kind greeting. Fans said it seemed too similar, but this guy was complimenting her and offered her drinks. This is where things start to get very nasty, however, and there was Mendeecees. He is really visible. Pull up in the middle of a chat, entering this unpleasant situation head-on now. According to others, it was all a year ago's hoax video by Lil Man. However, given the Season 13 schedule and how people have been wondering whether Mendeecees and Yandy's recent modest appearances on the program are the true cause for their low-key behavior. And Mendeecees himself spoke out just as the internet debate was becoming heated. What? What did he say? In today's video, we're going to break everything down, so keep watching. It began as a typical hip-hop and love flashback when browsing the Explore page when abruptly, the footage appeared once again. The image of Yandy grinning while seated at a restaurant as a guy who looked similar to Drake, talking to her while leaning in close in front of everyone. At first, several fans believed it to be manipulated or photoshopped video from another event. However, when more individuals began to investigate, they discovered that this was not a fabrication. This was from a previous YouTube prank film that Lil Mendeecees posted almost a year ago, in which he used a Drake impersonator to check in with his family. However, for some reason, people weren't only giggling at it, as if it were a brand new controversy, they were dissecting every single minute in the tape. Why did Yandy appear to be so friendly with the fake Drake? Others were questioning, why did Mendeecees pull up with such a serious expression on his face? Some even said that Mendeecees first seemed to be unaware that it was a prank. Although Love and Hip Hop fans have previously examined older material, the timing seemed different this time. The 13th season has recently debuted. Additionally, although the focus, Yandy and Mendeecees were notably in the background, appearing seldom in the first few episodes, and had up until now focused on Scrappy and Shakira's plot, and now that the video had leaked again, everyone was wondering whether it was deliberate. Perhaps something was happening off camera. Why the blogs were so popular, Mendeecees conducted himself in the video by chatting. When he entered the restaurant, Yandy was seated there, with the Drake impersonator, and rather than making a fuss, he maintained his composure and greeted everyone as if nothing had happened. However, there was a spark of something visible in his eyes. Comments like he was hurting on the inside were posted by fans on Twitter, and some were posting slowly. As you can see, zooming in on Mendeecees' face as he entered, motion replays. It wasn't just the no longer play pranks. It had been transformed into a whole emotional story by others. The remarks about Yandy herself came next. Even though he was only a Drake impersonator, several people thought she was too at ease and too eager to joke and laugh with him. In several of the films, she smiled when he gave her compliments, took beverages, and leaned in somewhat too closely. For some viewers, ease. In actuality, however, it was most likely just harmless fun. It had all been set up by Lil Mendeecees, after all. However, it began to develop into a larger narrative when fans began combining that film with recent Season 13 clips that showed Yandy gazing away from Mendeecees. Soon after, fan sites began piecing entire montages. Yandy and the Drake impersonator would be seen giggling at one point. A shot from Season 13 then cuts to her sitting quietly at a cast dinner without even glancing in Mendeecees' direction. Furthermore, social media doesn't really wait for the facts. Even when there isn't any official proof that anything is wrong between them, they develop their own hypotheses. Even polls were being posted by some. Do you believe that Mendeecees and Yandy are having issues off camera? While hundreds of people were casting their ballots, old Mendeecees interview snippets began to reappear as well. Interviews in which he discussed trust and the difficulties he experienced acclimating to life outside of jail, how he spoke about how fame had affected his life and how Yandy kept him down. The bloggers were, maybe this wasn't as funny to Mendeecees as he made it seem, he said, relating his remarks to the widely shared Drake joke. Yandy's own previous posts were also shown. Specifically, she said something about maintaining my essay regardless of what was now being examined in the comments. Around the same time as the hoax video, back then, many were wondering whether it was her way of implying tension. It's amazing how something so little can become a major subject just because someone on the internet chooses to have a different stance on it. Fans weren't the only ones agitating the situation. Hip and in love, the tale was taken up by YouTube commenters, hot bloggers, and even some gossip websites. YouTube began to display thumbnails with names like "What Really Happened?", Yandy's Drake Moment, and Mendeecees' Pain is Hiding or Unbothered. The hoax videos clips were being sliced up and released again as if they were newsworthy. However, Mendeecees' own actions were what truly heated things up. At last dealt with it. Nothing spectacular happened, no live video or lengthy remarks. He just left a comment on a blog page that included the Drake impersonation video. "Y'all," was all he said. "Time to unwind." Little man played a practical joke, but as soon as you stop trying to make everything into something it's not. When that statement was made, it just fueled the flames. People were divided. Some said that he was obviously done and wished for everyone to stop. Others said that since he even replied, it struck a chord, and the discussion continued. What had started out as a straightforward retro joke had now evolved into the unofficial plot of season 13, watching new episodes with new eyes. Fans were searching for any indication of friction between Mendeecees and Yandy. Is she more reserved than normal? At events, did he sit further away? When it comes to hip-hop drama and love, the internet never misses anything. Beyond all of the conjecture on social media, however, a more in-depth discussion was taking on among regular watchers. They began discussing the impact of public life and celebrity on genuine relationships. In the comments, many spoke about their own experiences of being treated disrespectfully by little things that others would consider innocuous. Mendeecees and Yandy were no longer the exclusive focus. It had to do with perception, trust, and the hazy boundaries between reality TV and the real world. Fans discovered details they hadn't previously noticed when further snippets of the spoof movie circulated, such as how Mendeecees provided the uncomfortable embrace when he initially entered, not paying close attention to anybody, or how Yandy seemed to acquire just a little too protective when it was rumored that Mendeecees was arriving. At one point in time, people really Yandy laughed a bit too loudly as the Drake impersonator made a joke about paying drinks for everyone. A few said it was insignificant. Some said it was an indication of something more serious. Even the body.YouTube language specialist jumped in, dissecting each clip and highlighting hand gestures, facial expressions, and more. As season 13 continued to air, it seemed as if everyone on the internet had suddenly become investigators, with Mendeecees and Yandy mostly remaining in the background and not discussing any of it during the actual program. Watching two tales at once was almost impossible. The one on television and the one taking place online in real time, both of which were rife with speculation. Supporters frantically attempting to get the truth about what was really happening behind the scenes, and questions. Once the discussions got going, there was no stopping them, and fans continued to dig despite Mendeecees' repeated claims that it was all a hoax. Additionally, when additional videos appeared on TikTok and in real life, things began to seem even more layered. Everyone was discussing about Yandy's self-handling behavior and what do those times with Drake look like. In one moment, he offered to purchase the priciest drink available at the bar. Yandy played along, joking and laughing as if it were a lighthearted matter. For that was lighthearted fun for some viewers, but it was a warning sign for others. Individuals' comments such as "Ain't no way I'd let my wife act like that," even as a joke, began to pour in, particularly from people who had been watching Yandy and Mendeecees' romance throughout the previous seasons. Beneath reposted footage, the fact that other bloggers went farther just made things messier. They began mixing that spoof video, including actual scenes from season 13 with their own comments added. For example, notice Yandy's appearance here. Watch her in this old video now. Same vitality. Nothing in the current season indicated that she and Mendeecees were at odds. But once that notion was established, it wouldn't go away. Already, the crowd started searching for clues. Additionally, there was discussion regarding how, in general, not only in that hoax video, Mendeecees had behaved himself well. People recalled times in past seasons when he had maintained his composure under duress. The kind that doesn't blow up on camera even. If he was troubled by something, some admirers contended that his composure did not imply that he was unharmed. It just meant that he kept things confidential. Others said that he made that little remark under the blog article for just that reason. The blog post, the hypotheses followed. On YouTube, fans started sharing lengthy analysis videos, some exceeding 30 minutes, that examined Mendeecees and Yandy's actions on social media. People remarked that they hadn't posted to each other as much in previous years, months. It was also pointed out that Yandy had not responded to Mendeecees' previous posts that seemed out of character to long-standing followers. Although there's no concrete evidence, that means that in the realm of hip-hop and romance, Even minor details might lead to major speculations. Yandy herself said nothing throughout this whole ordeal. She didn't share any discussing the video or the discussions around it, saying no tweets, no lives. It was only louder when there was silence. Both fans and bloggers said, wouldn't she have said anything by now if it wasn't such a huge deal? When things are kept open-ended enough for supposition, that's what keeps the hip-hop and love communities interested. Everyone to retell the narrative in their own way. In the meanwhile, episodes of Season 13 continued running, and viewers began to pick up on increasingly nuanced details. Mendeecees and Yandy were there for one event scene, although they didn't talk much. That silent distance, nothing overt, no disagreements, no drama on camera. People linked that, of course. Let's go back to the Drake look-alike hoax that appeared. Despite the fact that it was illogical and the context of logic isn't always the first priority for reality TV fans, the tale people believe is what counts. Discussions about the difficulties couples have after years of appearing on reality TV were also sparked by this circumstance. With so much old film circulating around, fans began discussing how simple it is for outsiders to slant a moment. All around, some even posted old videos of Yandy and Mendeecees from previous seasons, had experienced public ups and downs, including jail time, business setbacks, and the fact that every little matter always became a topic of discussion at the same moment. A flood of support swept through. Not everyone was in favor of advancing the dramatic plot. Many regular watchers were posting, "Y'all really reaching, and it was just a prank. Yandy and Mendeecees are solid." Everyone was reminded by those remarks that there are always two sides to a story, regardless of how widely shared an event becomes. Came back here because of the Season 13 drama, is one remark that some fans have left beneath Lil Mendeecees' original video. It was incredible to see a video that had been untouched for more than a year on YouTube suddenly get a ton of views and comments. In the midst of all of that, Lil Mendeecees himself garnered some notice due to something that is now occurring on TV. 2. A few admirers began speculating that, by first uploading the prank, he could have inadvertently agitated the situation. Others stood up for him, arguing that people needed to unwind and that it was innocent fun. Fans also circulated edits in which they combined video from actual Drake performances with Lil Mendeecees' fake film, giving the impression that Drake had really pulled up on Yandy. Anyone who was listening could see it was untrue. However, the material continued to propagate despite this. This all intensified into a maelstrom of sorts, where everything bound together. Mendeecees' quick remark, Yandy's quiet, and Lil Mendeecees' prank video. Yandy and Mendeecees' silent separation in Season 13. Everything merged into a single, continuous story. Additionally, as more individuals tuned into love, and even fans who weren't often interested in Yandy and Mendeecees found themselves paying more attention in hip-hop Atlanta. However, there was a lot of disagreement over how to interpret Mendeecees' overall vibe. Some admirers thought it demonstrated true maturity since he was keeping things so low-key. Others said that maybe being silent allowed people to assume the worst. In a recent show, he glanced at the camera from the side, and fans immediately said, "See, he's thinking about that Drake already" thing at the moment. It didn't even seem to matter whether that was true. Love, the narrative had taken on a life of its own. And watchers of hip-hop are notorious for clinging to such things, transforming little incidents into arguments that last for a whole season. It only made sense for fans to fill in the spaces with whatever they could find, since Yandy and Mendeecees aren't as often featured in the recent episodes. Whether the producers will focus on this storyline later in the season, perhaps bringing it up in a confessional or mentioning it was even discussed on the fan sites. During a cast meeting, speculation like that is what keeps people returning week after week to see whether the turmoil off-camera permeates the broadcast itself. Even if it was just a prank, after anything like that reaches the public and gathers traction, it seldom goes away without a trace. Outside of the official Love and Hip Hop Atlanta narrative, the whole incident had taken on a life of its own. It even seemed more genuine than some of the show's actual storylines, according to some viewers' jokes. Additionally, every episode release seemed like a new jigsaw piece, since Yandy and Mendeecees are now the focus of so much attention, whether it left them with additional questions or if it supported their views. When Mendeecees remarked beneath that blog article was picked up by some larger gossip sites, it really sent everything into a tailspin. It was just a few lines encouraging everyone to calm down, not a whole statement. However, for some reason, getting a direct response from him sparked a whole new round of conjecture. He wouldn't have said anything if it really didn't bother him. Others began to remark. Others countered that he was just fed up with the internet fabricating stuff. Longtime supporters understood that Mendeecees was experiencing something behind The scenes, even though he had always been the kind to maintain his composure in front, scenes, when those gossip sites began to report on it, responses rushed in from all directions. Some admirers completely agreed with Mendeecees, claiming that the prank wasn't that amusing in the first place. Yandy was quickly defended by others, who reminded everyone that she had supported Mendeecees through all those difficult years, particularly while he was incarcerated, and she felt that it wasn't right to bring her reputation into disrepute over a manufactured YouTube video. Everywhere, comment sections were crowded with discussions. There were debates on Instagram, Facebook groups, and even Twitter places, questioning repeatedly whether Yandy's actions in that video were inappropriate, whether they were pranks or not. A few members of the Love and Hip Hop cast started liking postings about the incident. Even though there were no overt or public declarations, those little social media actions were observed. When one of the supporting cast members double-tapped a post that showed Mendeecees entering the restaurant, fans took note, and the topic of debate instantly changed once again. You see, they are all aware of the strain. People wrote, creating new hypotheses founded on the tiniest information. The tale was sustained by the degree to which it seemed plausible. It wasn't some ridiculous altercation or outrageous treachery. It was understated, credible, and something that begins little and becomes larger just by the way people discuss it. Particularly in the world of love and hip-hop, where reality TV and real life blend together so effortlessly. Compared to a written drama, that kind of story is more memorable. Viewers were riveted to every background moment as season 13 continued. To broadcast, Mendeecees was seen sitting off to the side in a brief camera pan during one of the cast events, not interacting with the group very much. That shot, which was just a couple seconds long, became a conversation starter. Supporters were lowering the speed, taking a snapshot, and said, "Observe his expression. He's over it, didn't really matter." By then, whether it was a coincidence or something that was really connected to the hoax tape, there was already excitement in the air. Other Love and Hip Hop Atlanta couples, meanwhile, began subtly contributing via podcasts and interviews. On a relationship podcast, one cast member discussed how social media may cause issues for reality TV couples by bringing up past situations that had previously been resolved in private. However, neither Yandy nor Mendeecees were named. Straightforwardly, everyone understood precisely who they were referring to. That kind of indirect comments just fueled the flames, giving followers the impression that something more profound was happening. It had not yet been aired. What really pushed folks to reflect was how Yandy was quiet the whole time. The video had been resurfacing for weeks, and despite all the internet, she had remained silent despite the hubbub. No postings explaining things, no Instagram stories addressing it. That quiet was more powerful than anything else for someone who is often so outspoken about defending her family and reputation. Opinions among fans were divided on it. Some thought she was just refusing to contribute to the drama. Others felt perhaps there was some tension she didn't want to share with the world just yet. Goodbye. At this point, the Drake doppelganger joke had utterly dominated hip-hop and love discussions. Atlanta season 13 blogs had stopped concentrating on Shakira, Scrappy, or any of the more recent plots. Everything had returned to Mendeecees and Yandy. YouTube channels that provide reviews now. The program began holding hour-long live streaming in which they would again analyze the prank film, pointing out every element as if it were a reality TV probe. Even famous people outdoors, the hip and love the gossip engulfed the hop world, reposting a video of the prank with a laughing emoji. One R&B star said, "Bro really believed he was Drake FR," and just that post attracted many more focus on the circumstances. The core LH supporters were no longer the only ones. Fans no longer just one post from afar brought much more attention to the circumstance. The core LHH devotees were no longer the only ones. People who didn't even routinely watch the program, and casual viewers were now commenting, questioning what was really continuing with Mendeecees and Yandy. As the clamor increased, there was everyone started comparing what was going online with how things appeared on the television. And Yandy and Mendeecees continued to appear in the most recent episodes of season 13, but with the same subdued vigor. There were just fleeting looks and low-key side chats that didn't disclose anything. No significant scenes or intense emotional moments. That just added to the sense of mystery for fans of love and hip-hop. In the midst of all the public discussion, some insiders began leaking purported tea too. Blog sites that claimed to have inside information about the true situation between Yandy and Mendeecees uploaded anonymous direct messages. Away from the camera, a lot of stuff was ambiguous, such as they're resolving issues in private, or Yandy didn't appreciate since the prank went down. There has been a problem. Once it struck, it didn't even seem to matter whether any of it was real. In the perspective of the fans, the blogs became a part of the plot. People began posting old videos of Mandy's debut, returned home, and Yandy gave him a lavish welcome party. Together with the hoax video, they would edit such sequences, using dramatic captions that suggest a terrible change in a relationship, such as from this to this. This one little prank incident struck a distinct chord with viewers, despite the fact that those two had faced much more difficult obstacles both on and off the program. Perhaps it was the sense of realism, something as straightforward as a glance, a chuckle, or an instance when someone exceeds a boundary even, if unintentionally. Additionally, the show's official sites weren't the only ones blogging about it. Fan edit accounts were active. Slow-motion montages, background music, and "Stay Strong" King captions over footage of Mendeecees entering the restaurant went viral. Even though the actual incident had occurred a full year before, people were really treating it as if it were a brand new scandal. Mendeecees only talked once more throughout this whole ordeal. It was simply another little remark on another website, not a whole post, saying this time, "Internet always searching for a tale. Are we doing well over here?" But once again, it triggered a whole new round of arguments rather than settling things down. According to several followers, it proved everything was well. Others said that he was just concealing actual problems. It seems that people had already made up their minds regardless of what either of them said about the actual reality. All of it culminated in this kind of double-layered hip-hop experience. And love? You had the show itself, on the one hand, unfolding with its typical drama week after week. However, there was the whole story unfolding online at the same time, one that was equally authentic. Compared to what was shown on VH1's Fresh, it is as dramatic and, for some fans, even more fascinating. The number of episodes continued to decline. The gap between what viewers were seeing on their TVs and what was taking place online continued to widen. In one recent scenario, Mendeecees and Yandy attended a cast dinner where other actors and cameras were present, participants. But to the viewers, who had been watching the resurrected clip narrative, their enthusiasm was evident. For the most of the night, Yandy sat quietly with her arms crossed. Mendeecees, on the other hand, hardly looked in her direction as he remained engrossed in a chat with someone across the table. It could have seemed insignificant to ordinary spectators. That little incident, however, seemed like proof to many who were already convinced of the Drake lookalike joke. For many fans, the last straw came when the official Love and Hip Hop Instagram page shared a behind-the-scenes picture of the group, in which Yandy and Mendeecees were both standing on opposing sides of the frame. Unlike previous seasons, there were no pair poses or grins. Almost immediately, comments began to pour in beneath that post, with individuals posting things like, "They definitely aren't feeling each other anymore, huh? And that Drake clip is played again." Casual fans who hadn't even viewed the initial hoax tape were beginning to wonder what everyone was talking about at this point. That caused the previous video to become viral once again, reaching new viewers, who were most likely not even keeping up with Lil Mendeecees' channel prior to this. Seeing something so basic develop into this was incredible. Full-fledged incident that took precedence over all other events on the program during this period. In a podcast interview, a few of the Love and Hip Hop Atlanta producers discussed the next season and teased future episodes. The season's increased emphasis on real-life situations was particularly brought up by one producer. This time, instead of fabricating plots, everything will remain genuine. Fans viewed it as a subliminal reference, despite the fact that they didn't mention Yandy and Mendeecees specifically. The speculation continued. People now thought that all may be revealed in a confessional or on camera in a later episode of the season. On their own, Yandy and Mendeecees maintained the same level of silence throughout. Pages, no pair selfies or brand new joint postings. Just standard information regarding their companies, family get-togethers, and marketing promotions. Nevertheless, despite the stillness, admirers continued to read between the lines. People thought that whenever Yandy shared a phrase about trust or peace, it was about Mendeecees. Comments would pour in whenever Mendeecees shared a photo of herself, saying things like such as, "Where's Yandy at though?" Then, something more unexpected happened. A videotape from an old Love and Hip Hop Atlanta reunion episode that had Yandy speaking has emerged on how little things Mendeecees had done in the past made her feel disrespectful. Items that seemed innocuous to him, yet seemed larger to her. The Drake lookalike prank tale was immediately linked to that time by fans who claimed it revealed a trend that suggested that little experiences could have had more significance than individuals anticipated. To bring everything into balance more complex, some fans even began to speculate as to whether Lil Mendeecees had any regrets about first sharing that hoax video. They noted that he hadn't posted much since, raising the question of whether the attention had caused him to retreat. Although there isn't any concrete proof, the concept gained popularity fast. Individuals like creating these elaborate tales, transforming the most little information into something more significant. Suddenly, what had begun as a single hoax film had transformed into a protracted off-camera saga season. When a new episode airs each week, live tweet threads would include updates about the Drake hoax tale in addition to responses to what was occurring on the program. It would quickly get millions of likes and retweets if someone shared a gift of Yandy looking solemn, with a message that reflected on that Drake moment once again. For lovers of hip-hop and romance, this kind of multi-layered drama is precisely what keeps the show alive every year. It goes beyond what is shown on VH1. It's about the fan theories, the side storylines, and the revival of the old footage. The discussion never really stops, even if the actors never bring it up on camera. Some followers even began speculating on the outcome of the incident. Many of them thought that someone would have to bring it up by the time of the Love and Hip Hop Atlanta Season 13 reunion. People believed that the season couldn't go without mentioning the show in some form, whether it was a presenter posing the question or a cast member making fun of it. Prank video that is now notorious. Over the course of the weeks, an increasing number of YouTube channels posted their own analysis of the remark. Some producers produced sluggish one-hour videos, describing the prank minute by moment and sharing their own interpretations on its meaning. Others focused particularly on Mendeecees to brief remarks under the blog entries, constructing essays in a whole film around just few sentences. And through it all, Yandy said nothing. Many admirers felt the quiet to be a kind of assertion. It left everyone wondering if she was unconcerned, or just didn't want to add to the excitement, speculating this is the kind of action that keeps spectators interested. For the whole experience, including the episodes, social media hints, YouTube responses, and the program itself, together to produce a larger image. What distinguished this specific circumstance from the typical Love, and it seemed grounded, like hip-hop drama. Neither violent altercations nor outrageous charges of cheating were discovered. On film, it was all a matter of perspective. A brief moment captured on video, individuals' responses to it. And how fans' current viewing of the program reflects that intensity. Later episodes of Love and Hip Hop Atlanta Season 13 made it evident that Yandy and Mendeecees' subdued plot had become just as considered to be any of the louder. There are more confrontational instances.